Okay guys, this is just a short update on my grinder restoration. It's only a 4-inch grinder, as I mentioned in previous videos, but I got it for free and there's not much wrong with it. It's a cheap Draper and as such it's not the best of grinders, but it'll do for, well, I'll use it for something. As you can see, the parts now have all been painted up. They are all ready for being reassembled now. So it's all been cleaned up and the rust removed and the grease removed and any sort of crap that was on it, and then it has got an undercoat of oxide paint. Well, the grey was certainly coated with oxide. These steel guards, they were in fairly good condition anyway, so I just gave them a light rub with some wire wool and then just gave them an extra coat of a Hammerite smooth finish paint on top. That got the base got the oxide and then the enamel treatment, as did the body and the end castings there. So the grey is enamelled, oxide and then enamelled, and the black is just a coat of smooth Hammerite. So that's all ready to go back together now. I'm still waiting for the bearings which I've ordered. As I mentioned in my last video, the bearings are a bit rough, but I want to just sort of talk about the shaft itself just for a moment today. As you can see, it's a pissy little shaft. You know, it's not very strong. I've still got to take the bearings off it, and when I do that, I'll maybe pop it into the lathe and check it for trueness. Make sure that there's no bend in it or anything like that. Two things I don't like about it is these little, they're not split pins, they're, oh no, the correct term escapes me for the moment, but they're just basically little ruled pins, yeah, rule pins, yeah. They were being used as a key. I don't know if the camera will focus on this. Let's see. Possibly not. Let's see if it's... Sometimes it focuses on the background rather than the foreground. There we go. Yes, that's better. Right, as you can see, the shaft isn't in a particularly good condition. There's some damage in places, nothing severe that I've noticed so far. But these little roll pins, that's an awful cheap way of you know creating a keyed shaft. It's not a proper key. So I'd like to replace that, but I don't have the equipment to do so. So what I might do is possibly remove those pins, drill the shaft to the required diameter, or drill the hole that's in the shaft, the existing hole, to a required diameter, so that I can make a tighter locking pin for the grind wheels themselves. If you just give me a moment, I'll pick up one of the grind wheels. It'll give you an indication of what I'm referring to. These grind wheels, they're cheap and cheerful, made in Taiwan, and one side has a keyed, well, a little notch in it, as you can see, for a keyway. The other side doesn't, yeah. So I don't know how easy I can do this with one hand, but let's just see what we can do. Right. Okay. And that's all it's got. And as you can see, it's still free to there's still play in that. I'm moving it back and forth with my fingertips here the now. No. So there's a good mil or two there actually. Definitely a couple of mil in that. Well, a mil. There's definitely a millimetre will play in that. So that's not very good. Eh? Quite, you know, it has been mass produced in China or Taiwan or somewhere and then imported into the country. So I'm not particularly satisfied with that. Having said that, the grinder's worked for many years, and it wasn't expensive to buy, I don't think, initially. The other thing is the retaining nuts for the grind wheel. Alright, that's the grind wheel in position. It doesn't go on any further than that due to the step on the shaft. Okay, and oh damn it, just bashed the camera on the grind wheel. Not advisable thing to be doing. So then you've got your anti-lock nut. Is that the right way? Yeah, that's the right way. So that one goes on there, and then the other nut obviously goes on the other end. The zoom on this camera has a tendency it'll stick on a little bit. Not particularly happy with it. You got to flick it on and flick it off. So then this one goes on in a similar fashion on that end. Now I'll just put that on just until the shaft is protruding through the nut, so that's giving you an indication that it's at the same distance as the one on this side. Well, it's actually just it's flush. Okay. Now it'll tighten the left hand nut. You are rotating it clockwise. Okay. Also rotating clockwise. The shaft must go on in this orientation, right? Okay. So the left hand is tightened by rotating it in an anti-clockwise direction, and then the right hand is also tightened in an anti-clockwise direction. The reason for that is the grind wheels will be rotating in a clockwise direction, so that should ensure that the nut can't work itself loose and come off from the shaft. So the shaft's going to be rotating clockwise, and any sort of residual pressure on the nut will force it tighter and tighter. Okay, that's the theory behind that, and that in itself is sound. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, how do you tighten the nut sufficiently in the first place? Eh? If you put a shifter or a spanner on there like this to put pressure on it that way, generally you would have some sort of locking mechanism or some sort of flat on the shaft somewhere. Get a secondary spanner to hold it while that nut is being tightened, and vice versa for this one. With a pressure being applied in that direction on the nut, you've got no way to hold the shaft and apply pressure in the opposite direction. If you use the nut, obviously, it's just going to unwind. You know, maybe a locking nut would have helped, but the shaft is too short. So you're forced to try and hold it with the grind wheel with your hand, and you don't want to put any significant pressure on these because they are fragile, So yeah, that's a design failure if you ask me. Whether or not it's down to cost, I don't know. So that's the two faults I've found with the grinder. It's the keyway, not the keyway, the roll pin is not suitable to act as a keyway, to be honest with you. Well, I don't think so. And there's no method to hold the shaft while you're tightening the nut. That should be an integral part of the design, and it's not. A minor point over and above that is these little, these small tool rests. They're a little bit flimsy, and having said that, I have seen much worse. I've got a SIP grinder, a 6-inch grinder in the garage, and while it's a more robust construction, the grinder itself, the tool rests are so narrow or so thin that you can just flex them with your fingertips like that. They really are. They are just for show and need to be disposed of as soon as you buy the grinder and make something suitable, because I think this is inadequate on a 4-inch grinder. What's on the SIP grinder, I'll maybe do a little video of that as well, is just, it's really poor quality. But the grinder itself is, well, it's okay. I'll need to strip it sometime and have a right look to see how good the bearings are and whether or not the shaft is running truly. But there's just too much of this junk being imported into the country, from China. We're throwing money to a foreign state and they're just giving us crap. So I don't know why we do it. Obviously importers are making money, the government's making money, but the general public are just getting conned and ripped off. It's just the usual rip off Britain carry on, and I don't know why we continue to put up with it. Anyway, I'm not going to start ranting about politics. I've no much time for Tories or conservatives, if you want to call them that. Or very few political parties, if you ask me. But like I said, I'm not going to talk about that right now. Right, folks, that's 13 minutes gone already. So yeah, that's my little update on the grinder today. I might do another update later this afternoon. My intention is to go up to the garage with the shaft and knock the bearings off, because my new bearings should come relatively soon. And oh, that was really lucky. And check the condition of the shaft. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you found it informative. And as always, buyer beware. Goodbye.